All right, round two. Sorry, I was just trying to make this video, and then I thought somehow I might be able to like Google something on my phone while I was recording the video, but no, cut off the video. So anyway, I'm gonna talk about Dune, the film, or more like the book, I guess. And I'm not going to be talking super loud because my housemates are asleep, but I'm wearing this, wearing a wire, so wearing this like gizmo, so hopefully it'll be audible. So I seen the new Dune movie. It was, kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. I was really high and had no idea what was happening. So this is not really a review of that movie because I don't know. It was kind of like watching like Lord of the Rings, where like there's all the like orcs and the elves and fucking hobbitses and everything running around doing shit, and like it was too busy to like keep track of like what was going on, who was who, and a lot of weird politics and drama. But it was a cool movie, something to watch. But I remember I watched one that was like made in like 2004 or something like that, and that was my first real introduction to Dune. But I know it has like a cult following from the book and from, I think there was a film made in like 1984 or something. But basically, from my understanding, Dune is about the Iraq War. It's about like the invasion of Iraq by Bush and Blair. And it's hard to know like how many details align. I'm sure there's a lot of details that do align that I'm unaware of, just because it's hard to know. But the main ones, I mean, obviously, like the events take place on what is called the planet Arrakis. So that's Iraq, right? It's just they just took the name Iraq and then added us at the end, Arrakis. It would be basically like the Latin name for Iraq. So it's not like, it's really pathetic, honestly, how few people notice that it's about the war in Iraq. It's pathetic because it's so fucking blatant. It's really blatant. Like, they call the place Arrakis, that it's ruled by Emperor Shaddam. Emperor Shaddam is obviously Saddam. I mean, I guess you can kind of debate, like, you could try and say, like, some things are coincidence or whatever, but the fact is, it's set, the first thing in the book is it says this is a prophecy, right? So it's saying, like, this is something that's gonna happen. So you put two and two together. I mean, the guy who wrote it, like Frank Herbert or Spencer Herbert something, I don't know. He worked for a magazine that was closely linked to like the intelligence community, and I think they actually got in trouble with the law at some point for writing stories that gave away too many secrets of the intelligence community. So, like, they were privy to a lot of information, and I mean, the U.S. has been trying to like take over Iraq for a long time, um, and it's an awkward scenario because Iraq was, uh, in some ways, Iraq was closer to the UK. Like the UK basically controlled Iraq, and the U.S. controlled Saudi Arabia, and so to some extent, the U.S., at least in the early days, the U.S. You know, agenda to like basically take over Iraq was an anti-British agenda. It was like a, you know, trying to basically replace the British Empire. Um, so, you know, obviously Blair, by the time of Blair, like they found a way to work together. I mean, they tend to be able to work together as long as they're killing somebody else, like usually some brown people somewhere. Um, then the US and the UK can work together fine as long as they're like killing some brown people, as long as they're not like, but once it gets into like the what power is going to be allocated to the US and to the UK respectively, you know, like then they start then it gets dramatic and they start squabbling, and you know, it's hard to know like how much real of a real alliance there is. But then again, it might be like it's hard to know if governments even really exist anymore, or if it's just all like one global elite. But anyway, so Iraq is Iraq, Saddam is Saddam, um, and you know, Saddam Hussein, I think he was already in the 50s. I think he was already like like I'm pretty sure when it was written, he was already a force in Iraqi politics, but had not yet been installed as the leader by the CIA. Like the CIA, I think, basically installed him as leader and, you know, gave him money to like kill the communists and socialists and stuff who were really popular there, or at least who were too popular for the likes of, for the, you know, they were too popular for the US. And so, you know, it's very clear that, like, you know, I guess people could debate of whether Saddam is Saddam or not. You know, I seems to be, but you can't really debate whether Iraq is Iraq or not. You just can't, unless you're just like fucking dumb as shit. Then you can do it. But I mean, if you just look at it, it's called Iraqis. It's the place that the basically white people from the white planet go and they conquer it. And Iraqis is an Arab planet, an Arab desert planet whose inhabitants speak Arabic. So again, if anybody really is just thinking, well, that can't have anything to do with the world because it's a fictional planet, just don't drive a car ever, because you just, I don't know. It's just amazing to me that so few people like comment on the obvious, you know, symbolic nature of Dune, and it's being a reference to like the long-standing designs to like control Iraq and to control its oil, which obviously in the Dune universe is called spice. But there's really no attempt to hide the fact that it's oil. You know, it's in the desert, it comes up from under the ground, and it's what fuels their ships. So, and I guess it gets them high too. They say it's a psychedelic or something. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm sure they embellish certain things. Although, it's possible maybe they might use oil to make LSD. I know they use oil to make a lot of pharmaceuticals. But anyway, so it's obviously about Iraq, and it's about the invasion of Iraq by white people, and the white people are led by Paul, I guess Paul Atreides, but I think he then becomes Paul Muad'Dib. And so I don't know, I'm not sure what Atreides means, but Muad'Dib is Arabic and it means the wolf. So I believe that's Paul Wolfowitz. And so, if so, then it means this has been, the Iraq War was in planning for a very long time. Like Wolfowitz in the 50s, I guess he was like in high school, I would guess. I'm not honestly sure when the book came out, but there's no doubt in my mind, there's no doubt that Iraqis is Iraq. But it certainly seems to me that Emperor Shaddam, who's the emperor of Iraqis, is Saddam Hussein, and that Paul Muad'Dib, Paul the Wolf, is Paul Wolfowitz. And Paul Wolfowitz was the architect of the Iraq War, commonly referred to as such by the mainstream media and just in general. And his sidekick in the story is basically Cheney. And I'm not sure if Cheney enters the picture in this film, but at least in the earlier film from 2004 or whenever that was, Cheney is a prominent figure. And so, yeah, it's basically about Cheney and Paul the Wolf and their adventures, in Iraqis. And, but yeah, I think Cheney is actually a woman in this. But it still could be based on Dick Cheney somehow. But again, even if somehow it's just a very, astronomical coincidence that Paul the Wolf and Cheney and Shaddam have almost the same names as, Dick Cheney and Paul Wolfowitz and Saddam Hussein, it's irrefutable that Iraqis is Iraq and spice is oil. I mean, that's just blatant. So yeah, also there's the Harkonnen. Harkonnen is I think Harkonnen are the people who are the white people who take over Iraqis. And I read a website one time that actually did talk about this stuff, and it was saying that could relate to Harken Energy, which is a Bush Cheney consortium or something out of Texas that took advantage of the Iraq War and basically used it to exploit the oil or something like that. So yeah, that could be what that is. But there's a bunch of other things that probably have much more meaning than I can elucidate currently, what Atreides is, I'm sure there's a significance to a lot of the different names and events. in the book. I've never read the book, but I've just watched these movies, and so the white people come from their white planet to the Iraq planet, Arrakis planet. They overthrow Emperor Shaddam, and then he's like on the run, and they're like looking for him, which is exactly what happened. They overthrew Saddam, but he was still in the country, and he was still, active and on the run for a long time. And then eventually they caught him. And that might be about where the accuracy of it kind of falls off, or at least becomes less apparent. And I'm not sure if that's because that's where their plans fell apart or some other reason. But, it's just an interesting thing. It shows how a lot of the arts are based on real CIA and, deep state plans. And I mean, you can, like, especially science fiction, a lot of science fiction is based on things that the writers know about the deep state plans that they actually know about. So, that includes like a lot of probably films about like bioweapons and all kinds of stuff, like, and, of course, like the deep state controls a lot of Hollywood and the Department of Defense. They fund a lot of films. So there is a very close relationship, but it's hard to know, like, do they control every film or not? It seems like there's certain films that like piss them off. Like, I think they didn't like the Bourne films, and they stopped funding whatever studio did that. But it just shows like how the line between fiction and reality, at least in the US, is not even necessarily a line. Like, a lot of times fiction, quote unquote fiction, is actually the best way to like find out the true reality, because the writers have access to information that other people don't have. So, they had to get control the spice, because he who controls the spice controls the universe. So that's oil. He who controls the oil controls the planet. And that's been like the guiding policy of like the US and the UK for the last 100 years, basically. Ever since the UK kind of, I mean, before that, the UK was based on opium and smuggling opium to China, and that was what was fueling their empire. But as oil became more of a thing, then oil became the new opium. So, yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about this. Again, I'm sure there's a lot more parallels to reality in it. But I'm just not sure what they are. But again, it's like absolutely irrefutable that Arrakis represents Iraq and that spice represents oil. And it's just terrifying to me that we live in a world where nobody can, mention that, or there's like these movies and books and all, there's been like at least like 3 or 4 movies about it. And yet there's so few people. There's like one website or maybe 2 websites that mention how this is actually about real places and real events and real people. So anyway, it's like Paul Wolfowitz. He went to my mom's high school in Ithaca, New York, and it was a high school that was kind of basically where it was like a supposed to be kind of a genius factory where they, in the height of the Cold War, they were basically pushing all these kids to be like the best and brightest to represent America against the commies or something like that. And so, I mean, I don't think my mom knew Paul that well, but like her sister knew him better. Like, I think her sister was actually in his class, my aunt. But, fuck Paul Wolfowitz and Cheney and all these scum. But it's just amazing how all these reptiloid monsters just assume that like they're entitled to the oil in the Middle East and stuff. Like, I've been reading this book about the conflict between the US and the UK for control over the Middle East. And it's really disgusting, if you look at it's called the Lords of the Desert. But it really shows how they were willing to kill anybody, to bribe anyone. Like they're just scum, like terrorists. Like US and UK governments they did everything they could possibly do just to control oil. And so they basically controlled every Middle Eastern government from at least like the 40s or something onward. And they assassinated a bunch of people, they bribed a lot of people, they controlled every legislature in the Middle East, and I'm sure they still control like basically every legislature in the world. They cry all these crocodile tears about like Russia controlling our elections or whatever, but it's the US and the UK that control every country. They bribe and buy every government they can, and those governments they can't buy or bribe, they destroy. They either militarily or they, somehow or other they neutralize them. And so yeah, fuck the government. And but yeah, I would say watch Dune. Like if you watch Dune without a knowledge that it's about reality, that it's like not even it's not even hidden symbolism, it's blatant symbolism. Like I just feel like you're not really like I feel like I was probably the only one in that theater that was really watching the movie, because all these other people are like, oh, it's a magical movie on another planet. No, it's like blatantly about Arabs in Iraq. Blatantly. Like they speak Arabic. There's no planet you're going to go to where they speak modern Iraqi Arabic. So it's just one of many things that makes me feel like I'm living in a fucking simulation. The fact that like I'm the only person that notices like, oh, this is clearly about reality. It's not fiction. I don't know. It's a very surreal experience to be like a conscious person in a zombie world. Not that I'm even that conscious. I mean, I'm pretty zombied out, but even to be conscious at all, it's like surreal because surrounded by people who either are unconscious zombies or at least are trying to play the part. Um, I mean, not that it's anybody's fault if they don't immediately recognize this film as being about Iraq, but at least there's a lot of people who should know better. There's a lot of, if people are educated, like, they should understand, like, this is about Iraq. It's fucking blatant. I'm sorry, dude. It's fucking blatant. So that's my spiel. Just trying to spread the, I mean, trying to make it more blatant, I guess. Like, if it's not blatant enough, then at least here's me going that extra mile to say, yes, it's obviously Iraq. Just, it's not like an imaginary planet called Iraqis with fuel under the desert floor guarded by Arabs that has nothing to do. It's like, I don't know. It's just mind boggling because I'm not like such a smart person, like I'm pretty dumb like a lot of the time. And yet, how is nobody else putting this together, or at least like, or just nobody talks about this? I don't know. Boggles the mind. All right, so I'm just gonna stop my rant there, but check it out, and who knows, maybe you can find even more parallels than I did. I think there might be some more parallels that I saw on like a website one time. So yeah, take care, and here's to a better world where people don't conquer other countries or planets just to steal their oil. And yeah. All right, take care.